committee, when we've negotiated these things, there's always some people that are angry, some people that are glad to sell their rights to their property. We've tried to do it in different committees by having it rerouted in different directions, but you can't have crooked pipelines going. It's a problem we will always have, but let me tell you that the pipelines themselves are safer than hundreds of 18-wheelers running through our communities with flammable liquids that can go through. They're also much more efficient. It saves our highways that are tremendously high cost and being torn up by the 18-wheelers regularly. So pipelines have a place for us. They are appropriate, but you have to be very careful in not letting the pipeline companies feel too independent to go in there and go wherever they want to. The Railroad Commission needs to help the citizens and be a place that citizens can be heard when there are those type problems.
Right.
Actually, I think Wayne put it very well. I think we've got to strike a good balance between private property owner rights, private property rights, but we also need to make sure that we run straight lines and allow the pipelines to be laid, which is going to require us to use eminent domain from time to time. The balance is important. One thing to be aware, and this is actually important for just everyone here to know, this has become a key issue for one reason: trial lawyers. Trial lawyers are trying to find ways to dig into all of your pockets and all of our pockets by going out there and forcing pipeline companies to pull up pipelines because they say they're not common carrier, and that doesn't benefit anybody except trial lawyers as ways to make huge fees raising these issues. So we need to balance those issues, but don't let trial lawyers make issues where they are not. And this is a real issue, but it's not one that is going to be as big as trial lawyers will try to make it out to be. So let's strike that balance and make sure that we're protecting owners' rights and protecting our industry, not protecting trial lawyers.
Ms. Berger.
Being somebody who had a pipeline thrown across my property when I was not home and they did not have access and came through anyway, I can tell you that we can do this better. We need to do this better, and I'm already preparing legislation and talked to several of the legislators about carrying it in the 84th legislature for me, because I truly believe that what we can do is, instead of eminent domain and taking your property, they can do what the satellite companies do. If there's a satellite tower on your property, they either pay you monthly or annually to rent that easement. And I think for lots of reasons we should do that, but the biggest reasons for the companies to do it is that kind of good PR is so much better for our industry than what we're doing by going in and having people like me have to go sue to get our money for that pipeline.
Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, look, I think they're right. We're in Texas, private property is a big deal. I mean, it matters to us. And my wife's family is a generation of farmers. I started working on a ranch in 6th grade. And so I understand the value of land. My wife's family owns a lot of land. But we have to strike that balance. We've got to ensure that eminent domain is a last resort, that we let the free market make these decisions for us to the extent we can. But when we do have to use eminent domain, we've got to make sure that they have the good faith ability to do so. There are 7 definitions of what a common carrier is in our statutes. We've got to make sure that they fit in one of those definitions. I don't know that the Railroad Commission legislatively can be the final arbiter there, but we've got to do a better job of making sure that we issue those permits in a way that fits one of these definitions. And let me just say, Ryan is right, trial lawyers are a big part of this as well. I'm a spokesperson for TLR in my off time, and I've seen the harm they can cause, and so we've got to just mindful of that as well.
And rebuttal card by Ms. Berger.
One of the things that you need to know too is the way that it's determined whether you're a common carrier right now is if the company checks a box on a form. And they're not doing the due diligence to find out if, because they check that box, they actually qualify.
Okay, closing statements, and you've already used yours, but you can comment. Oh, you didn't? That's not very nice of me, is it? To my fellow Dripping Springsite? Go ahead.
And I've got a very scary scenario for you. In Texas, or in Mexico, they've never allowed any U.S. company or Texas company to participate in any kind of royalty production, sharing agreement, or any kind of development exploration in Mexico. Right now, the Eagle Ford Shale continues into Mexico, and it has a lot of gas reserves for Mexico. What is Mexico? Pemex has now come to Texas and is acquiring easements to run across Texas and declaring their little pipeline company as a T4 common carrier, and are acquiring easements in South Texas, and this was indicated to me by some property owners in South Texas when I went to Cameron County and gave a speech. And scary stuff that Pemex can come across and make use of our resources and our lands and go straight to Corpus Christi from Nuevo Laredo is where the pipeline's going. And hopefully, they hope will be some LPG gas cells.
Okay, so closing statements, you'll have 2 minutes, except Brian, you haven't used your rebuttal cards, so you're gonna get 3. And I'm telling you, there's so many candidates statewide, it starts running together for voters for sure. So if you think about it, I was gonna do this as a question, but we're out of time. But if you think about it in your closing, is there one thing that distinguishes you totally different? Not I'm just better at this or have more of this than everybody else in the race. Is there one thing you can say, I'm the only one that this, or background or whatever? So try to give us something we can remember you by that makes you different from everybody else. And our way we've been doing it is, however we did opening, we do closing. That way nobody gets to have the first word and the last word. So Joe, you'll be our first closing. And then we'll go right down the line again.
Well, life is full of tough choices, and this is one of them for you. What I'm offering you with my candidacy is different. I will make sure that our constitutions are upheld. I'm a constitutional constructionist. I will protect our Texas family values. I'm happy to share with you all today that I just received the Honorable Judge Paul Pressler's endorsement and joining our team and for Railroad Commissioner. And we are happy to have him on the team. And we have some others. We have numerous gun rights groups, and we have the voice of the Aggies, Dave Elmendorf, is on our team. There you go. And so things are looking good, and we're moving along. And this is something that I feel strongly about, and I will serve the full 6-year term. I'm not here, not a stop along the way. It's my final destination. And I've had some success before in these statewide elections. And so I look forward to it again, and to making a difference and to preserve your constitutions. It's the privilege of knowing who you're voting for and what they can do to you or do for you. But it's all about public service, and that's what I bring, public service. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Look, I really appreciate this opportunity to meet everybody, and I hope you really learn more about us, and I'm sure we're all going to stay around, so I would love to talk to you some more. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. I'm running for the future of Texas. I'm running because it's time we have leaders who understand what servant leadership means, where we do what's right, we do what's best for Texas before we do what's best for ourselves, where we're willing to stand on principle and conviction, even if it means we lose. Even if it means we lose, we will do that. That's why I'm running. As the next Railroad Commissioner, I will work to ensure that the Texas energy, which is such a big part of our economy now, continues to be a strong driver in an even stronger economy. I'm an oil and gas guy now, a small business owner. We do oil and gas investments. We do we've drilled wells before. We've worked all over the country and have seen the different regulatory regimes. Texas does it right. Our industry right now is really driving what we're doing economically. I know what it takes to create jobs, to encourage investment, and to ensure sustained economic growth. I'll also stand up to the federal government and the EPA. A lot of people are going to talk about that. I may be the only one in this race who's actually done that on the ground as a regulatory attorney. I've sued the EPA. I've sued the federal government in this Obama administration, which doesn't like Texas, and they certainly don't like the oil and gas industry. They are trying to use a chicken that's being hunted in Kansas to stop production in Texas, and a lizard. And so they are on a mission to stop what's going on here. I will fight for Texas for as long as I live. Finally, I'll work to ensure that Texas continues to lead the way towards energy independence. Like I said, Texas is the #1 oil producer in the United States and the #1 gas producer in the United States, and the United States is now the #1 producer in the world. We can get to energy independence. It's something people have been talking about for a long time, and we're almost there, and we're going to get there because of Texas. So thank you so much. I'm Malachi Boyles, MalachiForTexas.com. We'd love to talk with you more.
I too am thrilled that you all are here tonight, because coming out on a weeknight, on a school night, when you probably had other things to do, This is important to each one of us. We're putting our lives on hold to run for this position. Once again, I am a petroleum geologist. I'm the only person, I think, here that has never ran for another office or wanted to be something else. I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be a petroleum geologist. And I want to use what I've learned and what I know in the field. You shouldn't be regulating something you haven't done. We don't move money around at the Railroad Commission, and we don't do downstream. We don't do processing. We don't do refineries. We only do upstream, which is the actual drilling, operations and production, and transportation of hydrocarbons. We do the mining industry, which nobody else in this race has any qualifications for. And I'd like to correct something that Mr. Poole said, because I started in the oil field as a roustabout 36 years ago, and still have my hard hat, and am very proud that it is made of hydrocarbon byproducts. I would appreciate your vote. I will work for you. I have been working for you. I have donated to campaigns. It just seemed more important to tell you what I've done for the party and what I do for you as far as training and getting people in front of you that can give you topics that you're interested in and give you both sides. One of the things I would like to see happen at the Railroad Commission is town halls reinstituted like we used to do them. So please vote Becky Berger for Texas and go to my website. Thanks.
Wow, 3 whole minutes. A few months ago, the PHMSA, which is a part of DOT, came into a terminal facility in Texas and said, this terminal facility, you are managing these tanks correctly. PHMSA is the DOT version of EPA, for those who don't know. You're managing these tanks correctly. And we're going to force you to shut these tanks down so that you have to do inspections on the seals in the tanks. Terminal facility began to freak out. Man, we don't know how we're going to do this. This is a big production impact to us. So they called me in. I'm in the business of integrity management. That's what our company does. So I went in and evaluated. There was PHMSA's referencing a DOT standard that represents an API standard. Long story short, I go in and evaluate the standards that they were following and sat down with the EPA guys and explained, you're looking at this standard the wrong way. The seals that you're talking about in this API standard don't apply because these tanks weren't designed that way. After about 2 hours of discussion, the EPA says, oh, sorry, our bad, and they roll back to Washington. That saved 250,000 barrels a day of production. This is just 6 months ago. This is what our company does as a living. We talk about how we know we've got to make sure that the EPA and OSHA and other federal agencies don't have a negative impact on our industry. We all know that. The question is, how do we do it? I'm here to tell you that when the engineering and the science is on our side, we win 99 times out of 100. And we can't go to bat next year or 2 years from now hoping that a Democrat doesn't win the White House. That's not good enough. We've got to be in a position that our industry stands on its own regardless of who's in the White House. We've got to make sure that our technology and our approach is second to none. I'll be the first engineer in over 60 years to serve on the Railroad Commission, in a job that creates regulations that govern the oil and gas industry, that govern how we drill, how we produce, and how we transmit. I started a company, as I said, that today employs over 300 people. When it comes to managing the Railroad Commission, which is about a 700-person outfit, how do we do that efficiently? How do we do that effectively? How do we put the Railroad Commission into a position that the market ebbs and flows when there are no permits that are applied for and there's tons of permits that are applied for? How do we make sure that we are able to respond to that and we're not a fat agency, and at the same time we're not too lean that we can't get those permits done? In our business, we've generated mobile technology that cut the cost of doing integrity analysis in half. It's one of the big reasons that our company has been able to thrive. I want to bring that type of innovation, that type of entrepreneurship to government. We don't see that very often, but I think that puts us in a unique position that if the EPA or the federal government is trying to impact our agency, that we are the strongest in the world. Lastly, I want to paint a better vision for energy. Right now, the state of Texas pays about 20% for gas, what Europe pays for gas. And you know where Europe buys that gas? From Russia. Russia is becoming rich because no one is competing with them on a global scale. And we've got the gas right here in our backyard. We need to be exporting more products so that instead of the United States being subject to global oil prices, the rest of the world is subject to Texas gas prices. If If we do that right, we'll be a global leader again like we were 100 years ago. Ryan sitting for Railroad Commissioner. I appreciate your time and appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Again, my name is Wayne Christian. Texas is Texas. It's Texas because we are an independent people. It's because we've been able to do things, and I'm different in this race because I can't sit here and tell you what I'm gonna do and that you can't check at my record of 14 years of service in Austin and see how I voted. As probably the most conservative voting record, 100% Eagle Forum voting record, 100% Conservative Digest voting record. I've stood up for property rights. I've led the fight against the Trans-Texas Corridor and property being taken. I've stood for the conservative Tea Party values when nobody else would. I'm in National Review this past couple of weeks. We have some articles out the table. Published a Cruise Texas is beginning to be the big thing that conservatives want to be as a cruise conservative. And it features 1/3 of the article that I was the only elected representative that when Ted Cruz was running for office came out and introduced him and proved myself to be a true conservative. Folks, we are against other people telling Texas what we need to be and become. And for too long we've sat back and taken for granted the freedoms that we enjoy. And again, as we fought and stood for a Texas that's very different from the rest of this country, we do not need to take for granted that the gift God gave us, that gave us the financial stability, many times to not take what the federal government says we have to do and thumb our nose whenever the feds say you have to do this, you have to do that, is because God gave us oil and gas like no other state. And I have 14 years of service showing that I fought and won in the battles against Washington, whether it be in oil and gas, welfare. Texas is better, and I'm proud to say I've been part of keeping that. I want to continue that for my children and grandchildren. My website is christianfortexas.com. My name is Wayne Christian. I'm the only Christian by name you'll find on the ballot. Thank you very much.
I kind of wish we had 5 seats open on the Railroad Commission. Don't y'all agree? We got some great candidates in the Republican Party this year. Great job, guys. Thank you for your participation tonight.